I have a lot of stories I want to tell. Let's talk about it. Hey Dragonlings, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Skye. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name SD Hegyes, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Recently, I've been doing a series of videos where I talk about all of the writing projects that I have and want to work on and what pen names they're under, whether that's been in the past, the present, or the future. And now we're going to wrap up that series in the final 3 videos where I talk about my projects under SD Hegyes. And yes, it's going to be 3 videos because I have a ton of stories under this pen name alone. For context, I have been published under this name since 2020. A weird year to start, I know, but that's just how the cards fell. And a lot of these projects have actually been in concept for many, many years before then. So if you're interested in learning more about my pen names and the projects I write under those pen names, feel free to subscribe to this channel so that you'll get notifications every time I post a new video. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started in the standalone novels and the anthologies and collections that I want to publish under SD Hegyes. Please note that if the book is not published yet, the covers that you are seeing on the screen are not the final covers and are still works in progress. Thank you. The first novel I want to talk about is called Biting Rage. This is a paranormal romance novel about a vampire-werewolf hybrid who finds his fated mate in a berserker woman that killed his sister. This story is currently in draft form and I've been writing on it here and there, but it's been more of a fun project just to play around with than anything else, and because of that, it's one I don't know if I ever actually will publish. It takes a lot of what is in the Underworld movie series and kind of puts a spin on it, combining some ideas from a series that I read when I was like 13, 14, and that series is called Incarnations of Immortality by Piers Anthony. And the book I specifically reference with this is called To Wield a Red Sword, where the main character was a berserker, and in that particular case, I don't know if this is actually a thing. It just was in that world, and I kind of stole that idea where someone who tastes blood suddenly goes into a blind rage kind of thing. So it's been a lot of fun to play around with this project, but again, I don't know if it's one I'm ever going to publish. It's just more for me to just have some fun with and play around with concepts and ideas and characters that I didn't know how they would work together. The next novel I want to talk about is called Blood Like Stained Glass. This is a paranormal romance novel, and actually if you're a newsletter subscriber, you get to read this one for free. It's also been known as Jessie St. George. That's why I've been calling it in my newsletter. This is about a college dragon slayer who discovers the boy she has a crush on might just be a dragon in human disguise. This was originally part of the 7-day book challenge. It was supposed to be a novella, but it grew into a novel, and it's since just developed from there. I'm currently working on a draft of this. I'm working on chapter 9 of 22 planned. And if you're interested in reading it as I write it, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter because you'll be able to get those chapters for free. The next story I want to talk about is called Dark Summons. This is a urban fantasy novella about a young woman who finds herself drawn into a cop's crosshairs because she finds her ex-husband dead in the middle of a sacrificial circle, and she must confront her complicated past with a demon that her ex released. It's currently in draft form, and I've been working on it here and there. It's just not coming together the way I thought it was, so this one may still get scrapped in the long run, but I haven't fully settled on that idea, partially because I've purchased a cover for it that fits the idea perfectly. So we'll see what happens with it, but as of right now, it's kind of on the back burner and it's going to stay there for a bit. The next one I want to talk about is called Growl. This is a paranormal romance story, and the idea of this came from the fact that I wanted to know what would happen if a woman hit a dog, only discover that it was actually a werewolf. I have been working on the draft of this, and actually you will find a link to a video on my channel where I outlined the entire project, so I will have that in the description below if you're interested in checking that out. The next project I want to talk about is called Hunting the Big Bad Wolf. This is a urban fantasy novella, in which case Red Riding Hood teams up with one of the little pigs to hunt down the big bad wolf, who has eaten her grandmother and destroyed his house. So it combines the stories of Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs. Currently this is just in idea form. I haven't even really started plotting it beyond that. I basically saw a pre-made cover and said, I want to write this story, and that's literally all that's happened so far. The next idea is called Inferni. This is an urban fantasy novel in which a woman who's hiding the fact that she is half demon in a post-apocalyptic world joins a team of survivors as they look for a new home. This one is currently outlined, but I haven't started actually drafting it. I have had some scenes come to mind every once in a while, but I've never actually sat down to work on those scenes or develop them into an actual story yet. The next project is called Just One Bite. This is a paranormal romance novel in which a vampire king must find a queen or lose his place on the throne. He's been giving an ultimatum to find a queen within a certain amount of time, and unfortunately for him, he finds out that he has a fated mate, and she hates vampires because the previous king, aka his father, murdered her entire family in front of her and wanted to make her his slave. So it's and kind of an enemies to lover romance, except for the fact that the only one who actually hates anyone in this scenario is her against him because she has a prejudice against vampires completely. This one is in draft form. I've been working on it here and there, but I've never been fully satisfied with it. In fact, in some of my previous vlogs, you'll have seen me talking about the fact that I am working on multiple different drafts and I've re-outlined it again. It's just been a hot mess, but one day I will finish it because I am determined to actually have this one, hopefully, fingers crossed, out in 2025 if everything goes right. The next project is called Paw Prints Brooksticks. This is a paranormal romance novel in which two meddling families, neighbors actually, try to pair their children together. One is a werewolf who will one day lead the pack, and the other is a witch without magic. Her entire family has magic, but she has none, supposedly. I am currently working on a rewrite of this. I have one full completed draft. However, I added some chapters with a character that wasn't originally in the story that adds another dynamic. And because of that, I have to go back and rewrite the entire thing and make everything make sense, basically. But it is actually going well, and again, hopefully, kind of like Just One Bite, hopefully this one, fingers crossed, will be out in 2025. I'm really hoping, at least. We'll see. The next one is called Tangled Fate. This is a paranormal romance novel. This one is about a bounty hunter who pairs with a vampire in order to catch his master, who's gone on a murder spree of women who match the bounty hunter's description. This one is currently in draft form. I originally purchased the cover that is for this story for another story, and that idea didn't pan out, and the more I write this one, the more I'm like, oh yeah, it works for this one. So the cover that you see was not originally for this story, but it works well enough that it will be for this story in the long run whenever I get around to publishing it. The next project is called The Biologist's Assistant. This is a fantasy novella. It's a standalone novella that will fall in the same world that I'll talk about in a future video, because that world is mostly novels and series. However, this one is a standalone, which is why it's falling into this video. Same world, standalone novel or novella. I was definitely inspired to do this idea while reading The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and I combined the idea that is in that book with the movie Nim's Island, where the author goes on a journey because she feels like one of her readers is unsafe, and so she goes to basically save the child. It's inspired by all of those combined. However, this one is about a research assistant who's usually used to staying in an office setting and typing up the notes the biologist sends to them. The biologist has gone missing, and they must use the biologist's notes in order to journey to find them and survive in a world that they've never been really part of. And it's about those adventures. This one is still currently in idea form, and that's pretty much the gist of everything I have for this story, honestly. I remember that as soon as I thought of it, I sent a little video voicemail to a couple different people, and I was like, this would be such a cool idea, and they were like, yes, it would be, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing it eventually. Not gonna be working on this anytime soon, but the idea is very much percolating in the back of my mind, like, do this story. The next project is called Wolf Huntress. This is a fantasy novella, and I actually have two ideas that could work for this story. One of which is a soft lit RPG story where a girl plays a VR video game as an elven bounty hunter with a pack of wolves, but meets one of her wolves in real life. The second idea is that it's a young elf who is pretending to blend in with humans to avoid pressure of her society, and she meets a young man dying of cancer who looks eerily like one of her bonded wolf mates. I don't know which of these two ideas I'm going to end up doing for this story. I might eventually do both. Both of them are kind of cool ideas that I think I would like doing. However, it's just a matter of knowing which of these will go with this cover. What I might do in the long run is put up a poll either on my YouTube channel or send it to my newsletter subscribers and ask them which one that they think goes with this cover more, and let them decide which idea I'm going to end up working on based on this cover and what they think this cover book would be about. So I don't know when I'm going to be doing this. It's still very far in the future, but the idea is there and I've got those ideas to work with. So the next idea is called Wolfless. This is a paranormal romance novella, and it's about a young woman whose mate rejects her because she cannot shift to her wolf form, and she finds herself mated to a new wolf, and he just happens to be the alpha of another pack, and he's considered very bloodthirsty and dangerous and has killed his previous mate. And it's about them learning to deal with each other, and the fact that sometimes rumors are literally just rumors and stories, and sometimes the people spreading them aren't who you think they are. This one is currently in draft form. I've been writing on it here and there, but it's been more of a fun project and I haven't settled on any ideas actually. This one will get done when it gets done, but there's no timeline on it anytime soon. Now we're going to move on to anthologies. The first anthology I would like to talk about is just in audiobook form. There's no physical compilation of this, and this is the AuthorTube Audiobook Anthology Volume 2. The story I wrote for this is called A Meeting of Souls, which is about a young woman grieving her husband and she finds herself teleported to another world. This was published on YouTube, and I will have a link in the description so that you can go watch that video. I believe the playlist of the other videos is no longer available. However, my video will stay up for as long as this channel exists, basically. The next anthology I want to talk about is also a YouTube anthology, no physical versions of this available, and that is called Pride and Prejudice Volume 1. The story I wrote for this is called Colors and Curses, which is a short and sweet modern LGBT plus Beauty and the Beast retelling. And again, it'll be on YouTube for as long as this channel exists, and I will have the link in the description below. Originally, this story was not for this anthology. Actually, I had read it as a submission to an LGBT plus flash fiction anthology, and it was rejected from that anthology right around the same time that this opportunity popped up, which is why it was published in Pride and Prejudice Volume 1. The next anthology I want to talk about is called Summer Solstice Seduction. This was a paranormal romance anthology. My story for it is Presumed Dead, which is about a woman with a bad luck with cars and accidents, and she purchases a haunted car. This one was done on a exclusive run and was only available for a few months. I now have the rights back to the story, and I'm working on editing and republishing them in a complete series, and I'll have more information about that in another video. The next anthology was called To Love a Monster. This is a paranormal romance anthology. The story I wrote for it is called Monster's Treasure, which is about the idea of what happens when the monster under the bed finds out that their child has grown up and they're no longer a child. Again, this one was on an exclusive run. I do have my rights back for this story. I am working on editing and republishing this one. And again, there'll be more information about it in another video. The next one I want to talk about is called A Modernism of Magic. This is an urban fantasy collection of short stories in which what if a calamity brought the existence of magic and magical creatures back to this world? How would it affect our world? What would stay the same versus what would be different? This is 12 short stories that are sweet with no spice. They are better read in order, and they're more slice of life stories where each story follows a different character. However, there is a singular character that makes a cameo appearance in every single one of the stories until the last one, which is her story. I was originally going to publish this story on Vella, which is why I have a Vella cover for it. However, I have developed that idea over time, and I've decided that's probably not the route I'm going to go, just because of the way Vella works versus the way I have been envisioning this story. The original idea for the story definitely came from a Tumblr post where it was talking about supernaturals in modern times. Then I also combined that with an idea that I remember my own dad writing at one point, where he wrote snippets about magic making a resurgence in the world. It was kind of like a Shadowrun meets modern times story, and he was talking about how some people were just magically changed into some of these magical creatures, whereas mine is going to be more about creatures coming out of hiding, but magic does make a resurgence. So it's different in that way, but it's very much inspired by the story that he wrote that I read. This one will be a 7-day book challenge project whenever I get around to it. I have written a few stories in it, but I have not completed the collection as a whole. And the names of these stories are A Shot of Charisma, A Trace of Perception, A Hair of Wisdom, A Bit of Money, A Page of Knowledge, A Fraction of Education, A Drop of Nature, A Lick of Strength, A Hint of Persuasion, A Taste of Medicine, A Foundation of Wishes, and An Elixir of Life. And An Elixir of Life is the one where the cameo character has their own story. The stories that are completely written and that are in editing mode are Shot of Charisma, Trace of Perception, and A Hair of Wisdom. A Bit of Money is currently needing a rewrite because the story did not go the direction I wanted it to, and I want to completely rework that one. And then the other story that has also been written previously is A Fraction of Education, because I had written a short story previously. There was a writing prompt that went around for a while talking, and I don't remember the exact wording of it, but it was talking about being able to buy a dragon online or on eBay or something like that. And I just rolled with that, and I wrote a short story about that, and I want to take that short story and rework it to fit in this world, basically. So that one is also in rewrite form. The rest are only in idea form at the moment, but eventually they will get written. I just haven't put them on the front burner. The next collection I would like to talk about is called Dragons Among Us. This is a paranormal romance collection. Both the stories that are currently due to come out in this collection were originally for an anthology. It was for the Quarantine With anthology. I completely wrote one story, and then driving to Montana with my mom, she offhandedly mentioned that she can imagine dragons flying over the mountains, and that sparked a new story idea, and that was the one I ended up submitting and getting into the anthology. However, the anthology was ultimately scrapped, the idea abandoned, and then I decided to take both of these stories and put them in the collection. I actually currently offer the story that was accepted for the anthology as a reader magnet to anyone who signs up to my newsletter. So if you're interested in reading that, feel free to sign up for that and you'll get it for free. However, I do want to publish it with the other story I originally wrote for this anthology called A Dragon and a Man to Go With. And I've actually been thinking about putting a third one in there as well. I have ideas percolating in the back of my head for another quarantine type story dealing with dragons and humans set in modern times. So I may end up writing a third one just to complete the trifecta for this collection before I publish it. However, I'm still on the fence about it, which is why I haven't actually published this collection yet. The stories are written. The Cowboys and Dragons is complete and ready for publication, as it is a reader magnet already. And then A Dragon and a Man to Go With is really close to that state as well, and I just haven't finished it because I haven't decided if I want to add that third story in or not. Until I decide that, I will not go any further with this collection. However, I am hoping to make a decision before the end of the year and kind of get this ball rolling for this collection. The last collection I have is called Fur, Teeth, and Claws. This is an urban fantasy / paranormal romance collection. Most of these stories that are in this collection were all written long before I started thinking about publishing, and they were just, I had a story idea and I wrote it. They're of different lengths and genres, and all the stories revolve around wolves or werewolves. All of these stories are in editing form. However, the last story needs a complete rewrite. There are 13 stories. The cover that I have with this actually was going to be for another story idea, but that story idea didn't work out, and this one took its place. The stories that are included in this collection are Beware of Wolf, Athil the Wereling, First Hunt, Don't, Werewolves and Werelings, Desires of a Bat and Wolf, Confrontation, Truth Behind Silence, Werewolf Curse, Werelings in the Rain, Werelings and Realizations, Eyes of the Hunter, and Wolf Moon. And I'm not gonna lie, Wolf Moon needs a rewrite because it was inspired by two things. The first thing that gave me the original idea was the fact that there was one night when I was like 13, 14, I looked outside and the moon was full. However, there was a cloud formation that kind of looked like a wolf's head, where the moon was right here and the wolf's head was here with its jaws open like it was going to swallow the moon. And that was actually what sparked the initial story idea. And then I read Wolf Moon by Charles DeLint, and the reason the story needs a rewrite is because it was closer to what Charles DeLint wrote in Wolf Moon versus what I had originally in mind, and I need to take it back to what I originally had in mind or just remove it from this anthology completely, which I really don't want to do because there are 13 stories in this anthology and I want to keep it that way. But because of that, I am still working on this collection of stories. Most of them are fully edited. I think I've got 3 or 4 that I need to completely edit still. I'm not positive about that number. I am slowly working my way through it and eventually it will get published. It's just not published yet. That is all the tales that I want to write as far as like standalones or anthology pieces or collections under the name S.D. Hegyes. If you made it to the end of this video, feel free to put a wolf emoji down in the comments section. And my question for you today is, do you prefer novels or novellas when it comes to your standalones? And what about series? Do you prefer series to standalones or standalones to series? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, that's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you in my next video where I talk about all the novel and novella series that I want to write under S.D. Hegyes. Bye, Dragonlings.